6.4, factoring and solving polynomial equations. So let's take a look here. The sum of two cubes. We have a cubed plus b cubed, and these you kind of need to remember. As much as the other ones, when you were foiling, you didn't have to remember as much. These you definitely should remember, because you can factor these items that look like this, and unless you remember what they are, it gets kind of challenging to factor them. So what we're saying by this formula is you take a and b, right, and you write them in front. So whatever the base is, you write them out in front. Then you take the first item, square it, the last item, and square it. See that? And then you take those two and you just multiply them together with a minus sign in the middle. So according to that idea, the first one should just be x plus 8, right? Not x plus 8. Before we do that, I need to make this item cubed. So what cubed is 8? That's 2 cubed. So now I can set it up. It's x plus 2 in here. So that's x plus 2. It starts with an x squared and ends with a 2 squared, so it'll be 4. Then I take these two items and I multiply them together. So 2 and x is 2x, and I put a subtraction sign right there in between them. So we end up with x plus 2, right? Those two items, squared, squared, multiplied together with a negative sign in between. The sum of two cubes. The difference of two cubes, you can also do it with subtraction. So with subtraction, just keep in mind it's a minus b at the start, and then everything is addition on the inside. So I have to try to make this cubed. Well, 1 you can easily cube to no problem. That's certainly not a problem. 1 we can just cube. But I'm trying to think of something that I can cube with that 8, and we just talked about that. That was a 2. So I can change this into 2 cubed and x cubed, and since it's 2 and x both cubed, that's why I have 2x cubed. So when we're doing this, this is the first item, so it's 2x minus 1. So then it's 2x squared, because you take the first item and you square it, you take the last item and you square it, and then you multiply both those together. And because this is the difference, that's minus, then that's plus. So we just multiply here. That's 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared, 1 squared is 1, 2x times 1 is 2x, and there is your formula. So trying these out with example 1, since it's cubed, I'm going to try to figure out, well, can I cube it, right? 27, can I switch that into something cubed? Well, actually I can. 3 cubed. So because it's addition, that means I'm going to start off with the x plus 3 one, and then I take the first item, I square it, I take the last item and I square it, and I take those two and I multiply them together. And since this is addition, that means this is subtraction. So that's why we got a minus 3x there. So we actually end up with x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. This one looks a little more challenging, but before we can start by doing anything, I need to take out what both items have in common. So they both have a u squared that I could take out of them, but they also both have something else in common. They both have a 2. I could take a 2 out of 16 and a 2 out of the 250. Because I can divide them both by 2. So if I take that out, I end up with 8u to the third, because I took out a u squared, right? U squared times u to the third is u to the fifth. 2 times 8 is 16. And if I took out the u squared, that's why there's no more u's there, and I divide that by 2, so that's negative 125. Now, if I look at that, that looks like I can use one of those formulas, the difference of cubes. So I can change that 8 into a 2 cubed, and I can change that 125 into a 5 cubed. So this item turns into a 2u cubed, and this 125 turns into a 5 cubed. So according to the formula, since it's minus, it's going to be 2u minus 5, right? So it's 2u minus 5. Then I take the first item and I square it, so that's 2u squared. I take the last item and I square it, so it's 25. I multiply those two together, and because it was minus, it's now addition. So when we do this, I bring down the 2u, that's what that is right here. Brought down the 2u. Still have the 2u minus 5. This is 2 squared is 4, u squared is u squared. 5 times 2 is 10u, and 5 squared is 25. We can also factor things by grouping, is something else that we can do here. And we group items together with variables that are similar in order to make it easier to solve these equations. And normally you want to factor by grouping when you have an even number of items that you can try to group together. So example 2, notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 items. Factoring by grouping is very common with 4 items. So before we start, you got to keep that in mind. It's a very common thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the first 2 and the last 2 items together. I want to take out something from the first item that they both have in common. So what they both have in common in this first thing is x's squared. If I took an x squared out of both of those, I would have an x minus 2, right? Because x squared times x is x cubed, and x squared times 1, right? We don't have the x squared there anymore, so there's just a 1 as the placeholder. So all I have left on the inside is an x minus 2. Over here, I can take out a negative 9 from both. If I take a negative 9 out, now I still have just an x there. And if I take a negative 9, 18 divided by negative 9 is negative 2. The reason why I took a negative 9 out, not a positive 9, is because I want these 2 items in parentheses to be the same. Whenever you factor by grouping, those items need to be the same. If the items inside here are not the same, so once we make sure that those 2 items are the same, then I can rewrite this by putting the x squared minus 9 together. And since those are exactly the same, the x minus 2 goes in the back. I also need to remember from before that I have the formula, the x squared and the 9 formula right here. That is the difference of squares. Since it's subtraction, 9 I can rewrite as 3 squared. So I can rewrite this right here as x minus 3 and x plus 3. And I have to drop down that x minus 2. And there's all 3 of them straight in a row. So when we come back here, we will try to finish up 6.4 on solving and factoring some of these polynomials.